So we're going to try to get back on track. I think we have maybe 4 more presentations as far as best practices. And so we're going to get that done. Oh, this mic is not on? I don't know. Okay, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, man, this thing is... Yeah, it's all good. Thank you, sir. Hey, so we're going to get started back and get rolling on, so we're going to get through the presentations, which is the main reason why we're here. Following that, I'm probably going to take about 5 minutes, and then I will open the floor up for questions. And so it's fair game for anything. So but if you have questions of me or questions about the program or questions about the way ahead, then I'll do my best to respond, and then we'll get you out of here so you can get your equipment and then get back on the road. I recognize that some people travel a great distance to be here. Certainly don't want to prevent you from getting back home to your families, particularly since this Kentucky weather. I'm not from Kentucky, but this weather's kind of strange, nonetheless. So Diane Kelly?
I'm short. As long as can you hear me now? Okay, good. Okay, do I just hit this? Okay, so I'm Diane Kelly. I'm the director of the Heartland Adult Education Consortium, which is Breckenridge, Hardin, Hart, LaRue, and Marion County. So when Diane Bratcher was up here talking about she's a rural area spread out, so she's taken the outer edges of our Lincoln Trail Consortium, and I'm sort of like in the middle with the little scoop down to get Hart County. There we go. Okay, so we are the Mighty Ducks. I wanted that to be our consortium name, but Connie Goff from LaRue said it wasn't professional, so we became the Heartland Adult Education Consortium, and I just squish in the Mighty Ducks whenever I can. Okay, so I'm going to talk about 3 things. It's something we do you might consider this part of orientation, but we need to warm up our students before they go into the testing. What we find is when we send them in cold, they're not going to perform as well. So we send somebody into the GED ready test because they have great scores on the TABE locator, and we get all excited, but we don't prep them for the actual GED. Every single person in this room has told every single person at SkillsU, the TABE test and the GED are totally different. But then what we do is we take a person with a TABE score and say, woo, if they pass the TABE with that score, they can pass the GED, and they can't. So what we want to do is we want to start preparing them. And GED Testing Service, this is what we do. GED Testing Service provides free opportunities to give the person a chance to study for the actual GED. And it's right on their account. So when somebody comes in and takes that initial TABE test while they're doing the locator or their initial TABE test, we're creating their account, and then we can show them how to access those resources from their account. So one of the guys that just took his GED ready test, he took it back in 2007. He was taking it again because I'm good at math. The TABE showed he's good at math, and he came out and he goes, I didn't know that stuff was going to be on there. Because he wasn't provided that opportunity to do the skills. Why not? Because he had a good score, and we were going to rush him in there because we need to get that GED right now. It's going to make a big difference between a 145 and a 140 score. Only Santa should be rushing. I know we need to get those GEDs, and we need to get them now, especially at the jail. I understand that. I threw a Hail Mary last night at the jail. She scored a 161. Okay, she went on the, I don't know if you guys have a WP program. We do in Hardin County. It's a wing and a prayer. I'm going to send you up on a wing and a prayer because you're transferring tomorrow, and she got a 161. But she was prepped going in, and that's the important thing. So one of the things that we do is we know that the GED and the TABE are different. So we also want to make sure that they've taken an opportunity to do the GED tutorial. What is the GED ready test, which is like the GED test, going to look like? Because it's not like the TABE. And then, of course, on this one, you can preview the test. I don't like doing the preview the test from this part here. But also on their GED account, you can do the formula sheets. And I like the calculator tutorial because they really need to know how it looks. But the calculator tutorial provided by GED Testing Service, well, it sucks, okay? I'm allowed to say suck. I'm allowed to say suck because Kelly did it, but they took out one of my words from my PowerPoint because that was not appropriate, okay? But Texas Instrument has a really good tutorial if you want to get more into the calculator. Okay. And, oh, that's the next slide. I was just going to say, wait a minute. Okay. And then what we do is on their main page, at the very, very top, there's these little icons that say RLA, social studies, math, etc. Well, when they click on that, it comes up with the study skills. And the study skills are kind of cool because it explains the stuff that they have to know on the GED, therefore they're GED ready. And it gives you the types of questions and the answers so they can say, hey, this is what I think I need to study. And then you can take a 10-question test. And I like doing it from this site because if they take the 10-question test from their account, from this main section on their homepage, you can see what they scored on it. So if they scored 2 out of 10, you might want to say, eh. But if they scored 6 or 7 out of 10, you might say, hey, yeah, you might be ready for that GED ready. But letting them know the types of questions that they're going to be asked becomes very, very important. And then, of course, they have different things that are available. And we use this so we can send them in a little bit warmer. When you have a guy that scores a 143 on the test, you might think, I got to give him instruction. Well, maybe not. Maybe he just needed to know how the test was set up. So that makes a huge, huge difference when they get that close score. Why are they close? Okay, so do not get us ahead of ourselves. We get excited. So this is Tina and Amanda all dancing around with somebody scores an NRS level 4, thinking that's the end-all be-all for the GED. And then they go in and they bomb it with a 139 because they weren't prepared. So we might want to consider spending a little bit of time up front getting them ready. And it's free and it's there. And not just telling them, oh, it's there. Just like, well, I'd like to give you the ready test, but you haven't answered the 10 free questions yet. I want to make sure you are ready, that you understand. Okay, so you were in the military. You know the 7 Ps. It's prior, proper, planning. I made it preparation, prevents. They made me take out the 1 P for performance. So I could say, prior, proper, preparation prevents sucky for performance. Say the word suck. Okay. So we also offer pre-test tutoring. We do, when a person passes 2 GED readies, they are eligible for one-on-one tutoring, and they go into our Sign Up Genius, and they pick the slot that they want to tutor. We have morning, afternoon, evening. We have late evening from 8 to 10. We have Saturday, Sunday, Fridays, lots of different times availability. But if they have a score that's kind of good, 143, maybe we want to, they can come into tutoring because it's close, but always we offer it before their test, to come in for an hour before their test, and we can, instead of sending them into the test warm, we can send them in hot. And it does make a difference. One of the resources that we use that I really, really like is captest.com. And I would suggest KY Skills U, Office of Adult Education, whatever you want to be. Look into this, because I think it would be great if you bought every single program a state license. So what this does is the person goes in, it's sort of a mix between the Kaplan book and GED Live, and they have videos. And I love the videos because there's 4 videos for social studies, 5 for math, 3 for science. They go in and they do the videos, and the videos don't teach them. They show them the types of questions that they're going to be looked at, that's going to be available, and then they explain why the answer that they picked was correct. They give them strategies about cue in on this word. It really goes over the vocabulary. The last thing you want is somebody going into their GED test for social studies and saying, what does propaganda mean again? You don't want that. So we use this a lot. In fact, one of my gentlemen really struggled with the reading, and he was on Aztec, and he was using his study buddy. Our jail allows the inmates to take, two of our jails allow the inmates to take the study buddies back, but it really didn't give him the lengthier questions. So we put him on this, and he flew through the social studies after that, and he got a 154 on the RLA the other day based on doing all the videos, because it allowed him to see what he needs to look at in the questions. Okay. And then I think that's it, because the next one says Somerset. Any questions, any concerns? They probably took out another one of my slides because it was inappropriate. I don't know. It's $129 for 3 months for all 4 subjects, or you can buy $49 for one subject. All my students use the same email and password. Do not tell CapTest. And I do know that I really want to be legal, so if you bought it for me, sir, I'd be, really not going to jail. But I know some of y'all are laughing, but I've given you the code and the password. You're using my code and password. I know that. So I'm experimenting with it before I buy it, $129 for each student. Because I don't want, when the student's done, I don't want it just to be hanging there. So that's why I thought you guys should investigate this, because I think it's a really good resource. And there's also GED Live with it. I think on Tuesday night and Thursday night they do a live session, and they post what they're going to do. I don't really care for those as much as these videos. They're really, really good. A student can get one-on-one tutoring if they have a good score like 143 or above. We will do one-on-one tutoring until they pass the ready, and then we will continue tutoring until they pass the GED. Or if they have 2 ready tests done, we'll let them go into one-on-ones for the remaining 2. But for the one prior to the test, it's prior to the official GED test. But they can also set it up to take it prior to the GED ready. Yeah. And again, we did our, some people call it boot camp. We did our high impact weekend we focused on the high impact indicators that is provided by GED Testing Service. So the first night we did the calculator prohibited, and I know some people say, I don't worry about that because it's just 5 questions. Imagine taking a test and missing the first 5 questions. How do you feel going into the others? So I failed it already, why bother? So and the stuff that we do on the calculator prohibited will also help them on the other. And then we did the algebra high impact, which is provided by GED Testing Service. These are not the hardest things on the GED. These are the things, if they know this skill, they can get more questions right. So we had 11 people, we had 11 people take the GED ready. 8 people took the GED, the official GED, and 7 passed. And then 2 of them took the remaining GED readies that Monday and Wednesday or Tuesday because they were so excited that they passed the math. That was their first test. So one girl came in 32 weeks pregnant and took the remaining 3 in one sitting because she thought, if I can pass the math, I can do anything. So it was really helpful, and we used the high impact indicators. And I'm like, if GED Testing Service, the people that made the test, are giving me these free resources, I'm going to kind of use them because they sort of know what's on the test, I would think. Do you have any Lysol? Spray this. Because I've got this thing. I don't know what it is. I know it's not COVID. Thank you. I don't want to. Well, that's complicated. I know. You could have helped. That sucks. I'm just going to throw that in there. Somerset.
Sorry. All right. Okay. My name is Cindy McGahey, and I'm with Somerset Community College. I've been in adult ed for 10 years and been with Somerset for 4 and been the director for 2. And so this job would be very hard without a little bit of background experience. Oh, there's that. Okay. There's just a snapshot of my crew and kind of our program. We have Casey, McQuarrie, Pulaski, Russell, and Wayne counties. One of the first things I've wanted to mention as a best practice during the time that I've been director, I feel like we've grown together a lot across the 5 counties. I can tell a noticeable difference in it's not easy with the distance, and we had COVID, and but these are some of the things that I think we are benefiting by working together so well. We do share a lot of information and learn from each other. There's a willingness to help. You know, if I am short, I have different ones that will travel to help out, things like that. We do a lot of brainstorming together, supporting each other in our programs, whether it's social media or just in any way that we can. And I noticed that we've developed a comfortable communication to where they feel comfortable in asking each other questions, just picking up the phone and, well, how did you do this? How did you make it work? Or, I really like that idea. Can you tell me more about it? So, things like that. And the little picture, I felt that was very applicable. Together, everyone achieves more. kind of have a little story with this slide. It's a lot of wows, but I try to quite often bring up things, just reminders for my staff of, that making the first impression when people come in, and trying to make sure that they know we appreciate them coming. And so anytime I get started on one of my little spiels, one of my staff, she says, yes, we're going to wow them. So she brings that up quite a bit. So it makes me think, yeah, I'm doing it again. But Somerset Community College offered us all of their staff a training a couple of years ago, and that's what it was, the WOW training. And it was all about the importance of customer service and what a difference it makes. Even in our personal lives, when we deal with someone who doesn't want to help, it stands out. When you get a hold of somebody who really tries, you especially notice that. Okay, so it is hard for some of our students to come in our door. We have some that they've never quite got over what it done to their self-esteem that they didn't finish high school. And I had a guy tell me that he went into a program, and he didn't feel like, this has been several years ago, and he didn't feel like they cared whether they helped him or not, and he never went back. Now, part of that was probably his self-esteem, but that is something it's real. And the barriers our students face are also real. They have a lot that they're trying to deal with, and continuing their education is not always real high on the list compared to some of the other things that they have going on. And right now, a lot of jobs do not require the GED or high school diploma. They can get their GED without using us if they don't want to come to us. But word spreads. The negative, anything negative is going to spread probably faster than the positive. So it is important to keep that in mind, and we want to make a good impression to our students, but also in our community. We talk about how it should look like. I know my staff is busy, but we don't want someone standing there in the door and not being acknowledged when they come in because of the things that I mentioned before. Just let them know what's going on. Let them know, kind of just give them the impression, yes, we are glad you're here, and we want to work with you. We also try to acknowledge achievements that they're making on social media, bragging on them, things like that. That really seems to mean a lot to them. Now, I will say we have some entities, as has already been discussed, that the partnership doesn't work very well, or it seems to be they want us to do things, but we may not get anything much in return. But we also do have some wonderful partnerships in our community. We have some businesses that will donate a little bit of money to help pay for retakes, so that the student doesn't have to, or we work with different entities for resources for our students to be able to make referrals for those barriers and those needs that they have, to try to help them. Our college has opened up a sharing care center, and they allow our students to use it too, so they can get food items and things. So all of the resources do help. And if we have good partnerships, if we have a good reputation with them, they're helping us with recruiting, because they don't care to refer, if something is mentioned, they don't care to refer people to us. And we can use all the help with that we can get. It helps things go more smoothly. Like at our jails, where we have some better relationships, if there's some hiccup in the works, they're willing to help us get that figured out. and that means a whole lot. That's just one example. We have some other partners that are willing to, just having a good relationship makes it go better. And some of these partners also encourage our students right along with us. Ready to Work, the people that work with, they give us some referrals. They also talk to them, and sometimes, our students, they just want to come in and put in their time and not have to work very hard. And so that's that extra encouragement of, you need to be doing what you can. And it's not always having to come from us. One thing I think my programs is excellent at is developing relationships with students. The students can tell that my staff really cares about them. On Thanksgiving Day, my staff got a text from her student saying the student was in the hospital and had a heart attack. Instead of contacting her family or friends, she contacted her GED instructor. And so, that speaks volumes, I feel like. And there's lots of examples that I could give to show those relationships. But having a good relationship does help the students complete the program, or if they've got too much going on in their life at the time, they're more apt to come back because they remember the staff and felt comfortable with them. We have graduates that stay in contact, come by to see us. They refer others to us. They support our programs on social media. They make encouraging comments to other students, and I just love that. And it makes our persistence less annoying. We have to stay after our students quite sometimes, and they have a knack for that. This is your weekly reminder. We'd love to see you back. And most of the time, they're not being blocked or told to leave me alone. They appreciate that it's coming from them because they not only care about them getting their GED, they care about them as a person. I love my staff. They're all wonderful, but I do have a few that I've noticed that they want to, they're very quick to say, well, it's just not going to work out. And so I'm trying to, as a whole, we want to change that mindset. If there's a problem that's interfering with the student coming in or being able to come in, getting the test, let's talk about it and problem solve. And these are, come in 2 hours early. I mean, we had a test scheduled. The person said, I can't come. And so one of my instructors, and I found out about it after the fact, she came in 2 hours early because that's when the person's ride could bring them in. And they just go above and beyond trying to make things work out. And there's lots of examples I could give in this, but it is somewhat a change of mindset of how can we make it work instead of just letting it go. So, and just Merry Christmas to everyone.
I don't have a PowerPoint. Okay. For those that don't know me, my name is Contessa Love, and I have 11 counties, Boyd, Boyle, Carter, Elliott, Garrett, Greenup, Lawrence, Lincoln, Martin, Menifee, and Mercer. If you know where those counties are at, you know geographically they make no sense. If I go visit my counties, it takes me 4 days to do it, because if you want to spend any amount of quality time, you can visit 2 to 3 a day. So it takes me about 4 days to get through my county. So unlike a lot of directors, I don't see my counties near as much. It takes me 3 hours to get to my furthest county. We're all over the place. I am the only full-time director. I used to have an assistant director, Donnie, that you all know, but when we started paying indirects, I lost him as the assistant director. So this year, he's not in the budget as assistant director. I have 9 full-time 40-hour-a-week instructors, and I have 11 that are 20 to 35 hours. I have 4 career navigators and 5 GED examiners, and those are obviously paid for out of other funds. So there's 25 of us, plus the 5 examiners. My enrollment goal is 1,197, so I'm at the bottom of the top third. Our enrollment is horrible. It's 18%. Our MSG percentage is around 51%, and that's because a couple of our counties are pretty low right now. We usually are at the very top of MSG percentage in the state, usually 1 or 2, so we're pretty low right now. The GED goal for KEDC is 299. As of today, we have 83, which sounds okay, but we're behind. We should have around 125. The bad thing is 2 of my counties have half of our GED. So Boyd and Boyle have 42 of our 82 GEDs. There's 3 counties, Carter, Lawrence, and Martin. They each have 8, and the other 6 counties combined have 17 GEDs. So we are struggling just the same as most of you all. It's just when you have 11 counties, it's like some years it's a hit for that year, and then the next year it kind of rotates. So this year we have a couple counties that are on fire, and we have a couple counties that are they're really bad. I have 1 county with 0 GEDs. I don't know if you all were around, but one year at our directors meeting, we all looked at cost per GED. And so at the end of November, I looked at my cost per GED, and I just took the amount that I had invoiced and divided it by my GEDs, and my cost per GED at that time was over $6,000. I don't think we were ever told what an ideal cost per GED was, and we kind of figured it out all these different ways, but I know it's not $6,000 per GED. So from a business side of looking at things, that looks pretty rough even to me, and I have 80-some GEDs. There's a few things that work for us pretty well. Having a data manager, when you have 11 counties, you need somebody that's an expert at looking at the data, and I do have that in Donnie. He looks at the data with me. He calls the counties. I do really appreciate Katie helping us with that too, saying, hey, you need to get this person tested. That's been helpful. But having more than one set of eyes looking at your data, more than just me, more than just that county, when you're a county of 1, like I have several counties that just have 1 staff, having somebody else that really is good at looking at it and helping and calling works well for us. The teachers send a weekly report to me on Fridays. And we call it our Who's on Deck report. They report who's coming up for testing, any partnerships they made, because I can't be everywhere. So if they've talked to somebody in the community or if they have meetings, they kind of let me know. Just a bulleted quick list, what's going on, new enrollees, who's testing, any pertinent information that I would want to know as the director. And then I kind of combine all their emails and send to my boss at the fiscal agent. GED manager, I just assumed that all my counties were using that properly, and they weren't. So I made sure that everyone, at least one person in the county, had access to GED manager and were using it. When I would go in, I would say, there's 80 people who have expressed interest. Why? But it was because they were going in and looking at it, but they weren't updating it. So now every week they go in and update that, and that's made a big difference, because I thought we have tons of potential, but it was, and then we catch other people because we can see all 11 counties, so maybe they go in and they might live in Greenup, but they've marked the wrong testing center. So we can call each other and kind of tell them to call that student. One thing that's worked good for us, I have 4 career navigators, and I can't afford to pay 4 career navigators, even 19 or 18.75, whatever the hours are. So we partner, I have 1 full-time like I'm required with the 32 hours or whatever it is, and then the other 2 are in kind that I had approved. 1 works at ACTC, our college, and 1 works at Moorhead. They were already coming in our centers doing a lot of stuff that navigators do, so I was able to pay them a few hours to do additional, fill out the forms. It was a good partnership because they were already coming in. I couldn't afford to pay somebody that many hours, and they already know our students, and they had a relationship with our teachers, so that's working out really well for us. We did a Chromebook Initiative. I think I did that year before last, or maybe, yeah. I bought 50 Chromebooks. I guess that was at the beginning of COVID for students to check out, and then we added more. So we split those among the counties, and we even drove those to our students' home if they didn't have transportation, and let them check out. I did have, of all the Chromebooks I've purchased, I had one student call, he emailed me and said he bought my Chromebook at the pawn shop and needed me to unlock it. So I asked him to please return that. So far I haven't got it back, but that's not too bad for that many Chromebooks. So, and it's locked, he can't do anything with it. Another thing we did, we weren't part of the Study Buddy pilot or whatever. We didn't get any from the state purchase, but we were kind of intrigued by them. We were like, we want some of those. So we bought quite a few of those, and they really like those in a few of the counties, especially in the jails and the rehab centers. We did purchase, I don't know if anybody has purchased the Brainchild, the online software, and they hated it. They said, never do that again, ask for a refund. So it is expensive too. That's not a product that works for us. We have kind of tried to narrow down. We used to try to do what everybody was doing because, you know, we didn't want to miss out, but we were trying to just, if it works for us, let's keep it simple. We're so big that if we just invest in 2 or 3 products and they work for us, we're going to stick with those. Location is a big thing, I think. Nobody wants to move. I hate moving, especially with 11 counties. You always, you know, and we can't really pay expenses. So sometimes you're stuck in crappy locations. In one of my counties, the last RFA, I stole Boyle from David, which wasn't very nice of me, but I did. And then the college kicked us out. They paid me back. They said, it was nice to meet you, get out. But we moved downtown to a church, and that church was a better location for us. So the college seemed like it was the best location because it was a college. There would be an easy transition. But in Danville, that church downtown was fantastic. They have AA meetings, and it's by a speedway, and there's just so many things. So that county has 20-some GEDs, way over what they did have. They're very productive. So. And then Boyd County is another one of mine that's in a college. We're still in the college. It's a great location for us, and we have a good relationship with them. But we needed another presence downtown, so we moved into the basement of a church there, and that has been a phenomenal move for us. So even though it's painful to move, it is usually a good idea to take a look if your numbers are low. I've spent a lot of money on advertising, but the best is word of mouth. Social media. Every time we get a GED, we do a mini photo shoot with our students. Caps, gowns. I mean, bring the family in. Even at the jails, they'll let us do that. And every time we do it, that gets shared. We have local papers like Elliott, Menifee. They'll go ahead and put that in the paper. Sometimes it's on the front page, never at any cost to us. So a lot of our students don't want to come back for GED graduation, but they do appreciate getting their picture made right then, that day, or the next day with their cap and gown on. So we try to do that for everyone. Our students are poor and they don't have gas, so we try to feed them when they come. If we can have granola and Pop-Tarts or anything there, a lot of times our students will say they're hungry and they want to leave. Then, of course, they don't come back. So if they say they're hungry, by gosh, we're going to go ahead and give them food and try and keep them there a little longer. And we use United Way, and they're happy to pay for things like that. We just have lots of rewards and make everything a reward. You know, our students, they love any little tiny thing that you'll give them as a memento for a level gain or anything. We try to celebrate all that stuff. We've had boot camps, just like I think Mary, I think she did a session on that. We've done that, and that's worked well. And we're really small, so we try to combine our boot camps between 2 counties just to get a little bit better participation. And we give them a gas card that's paid for by United Way if they complete, or if they need one every day that they come, if it's just a 3-day. And then we always have pizza and testing in that same 2 or 3 days. Some struggles that we've had is obviously enrollment. Our enrollment is terrible. I tried to do like a billboard last year. It cost me a few $1,000s. I put it in Garrett County, which was supposed to be a busy highway that would hit my 4-county area there. One person said that they saw that billboard. So for the cost, it just wasn't worth it. We did radio advertising that cost quite a bit, and we had one person that said that. So I just don't think spending that kind of money is worth it for us when Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and now what's the other one? That TikTok. I don't know. I don't use TikTok, but I know some of our students, the younger ones, are on TikTok. So we're slowly dabbling in that. We're not in all of our jails, which is frustrating, and it's hurting our numbers. We start and we stop. We used to get quite a few numbers from the prison there at Elliott County, and they told me to quit. They'll call me. Don't keep contacting them. So I have backed off, but that's hurt a little program like Elliott. It's a small county. That has really hurt those numbers, and I don't want to turn those counties into connection points because in the past we've got enough GEDs from them to have a full-time person there for at least 4 days a week. So we're hoping that those jails will let us back in. ARC, Addiction Recovery Centers, Genesis Pathways, all those are great sources of enrollments for us. It's just teacher frustration is very high because of the transfers and the personnel changes at those places. So you know, you'll make an agreement with the manager or whoever's in charge of education, and then, you know, 2 days later that person is gone. So it's very frustrating for our teachers. I mean, we'll have 10 people in Lawrence County, and then they'll get transferred. Char gets our students sometimes, and it doesn't work out well for either of us, and it's frustrating for all of the teachers. And I don't know a good solution for that, but it is aggravating. And we have a large testing. We probably have more testing than any other program as far as GED. I think I have 8 Pearson test sites. I have 2 full labs and maybe 6 mobile labs, Natalie. I have a lot. I have them everywhere. Yeah, they're everywhere. So if a student wants to test, we're going to test them, and we can take that lab about anywhere. So we do online proctored as well if the student is a good fit for it. But ARC, I don't know. They're just they're wonderful and they're terrible all at the same time. One last thing that I don't know, this might be an unpopular opinion, but it's my opinion, so I think I'll share it. The one overall KEDC goal that we got, I think the last RFA, it went to fiscal agent goals instead of individual county goals. Was that right? That has been a source of frustration for many of my staff. They log in and you have 11 counties and you see that dashboard and, you know, you need 289 GEDs and your county's gotten 8, and they just feel like it's unattainable, unreachable, it's not motivating. Then the big counties that are doing well are kind of carrying the load for the small counties. The small counties feel like they can never catch up. The big counties feel like they're doing it all. And then if we don't meet the goal, we've all failed. So when we had individual goals, it was on that county. You knew in Greenock County you had 40 GEDs to get that year. You got your 40, and, you know, good for you. Elliott County had 10. It was more reasonable, and I can add GEDs, and I've done that to other counties, but is it fair to force other counties that struggle to get their 30 or 40 to now get 50 because my smaller ones? But as the director, it's on me. If we don't get all of them, then we've failed and possibly could lose our grant. So that is frustrating for us. The other thing that I think is frustrating is I feel like I have to beg for my county goals every year. I want to see from Skills U what my county goal was based on the rolling data. And the past couple years, I just get my big goal of 299, and I'll say, well, can I have my individual county goals? No, that's up to you as the director to decide. Well, I think my counties want to know if their goal was 40, why'd you give me 50? And Elliott's goal was 15, and you only gave them 5. So I like to see that data without feeling like it's all on me. Like, here's what your goal is based on the data, but we're not being given that anymore. So that's my 2 cents on that. And I think that's all I have. If anybody has any questions.
One of the things that I did is I looked when I first was hired at the individual county goal, and then when I
Yeah, we've known the goal for years, so I know about what it is. But, I mean, Bull County, for example, I up their GEDs every year. Well, then they're like, gosh, we need to, or we should slow down because Tessa's going to increase our goal. I mean, I know the way they think. Yeah, exactly. So then if they see I don't know, it's a fine line. And I have a great staff. I've been there 18 years, and I think I have some of the best teachers in the whole state. But I understand their frustration. So I don't know a good solution, but in my humble opinion, I would like to go back to individual county goals. Thank you.
My biggest challenge will be using this correctly. Oop. All right, Peg Russell. I'm with the northern Kentucky counties. The building you see there, and I count myself very, very fortunate to be part of KCTCS. That is one of 2 facilities that we have at Boone County. And some of you have been up there when y'all used to remember that northern Kentucky had counties. You used to bring some training up our way. And we are very fortunate to have fabulous facilities, and I think that goes a long way. I've been on both sides. I've been in non-KCTCS facilities and some others, but I will say that our students react very positively and will often comment on the facilities. You can see I have Boone, Grant, Kenton, Owen, and Pendleton. Boone and Kenton are number 3 and 4 in the state in terms of size of population. Then I have Grant, that's sort of a small to medium. And then I have Pendleton and Owen, who for years we tried to struggle under other program directors. And when I got those and we had the opportunity to do connection points, we turned those into connection points. And we have 2 wonderful libraries that work well with us, and we do a good job there. They're very rural. So orientation and goal setting. I have to give kudos to Lori for assigning us to a new PLC coach. She's looking around, I'm talking to you. And we have focused truly on orientation and getting to know our students and what our students need this year more than ever. And particularly in terms of their ability to be a good online student or not. And that has made a huge difference as we channel and advise those students. We've created a survey, and we do a very in-depth orientation. And I'm happy to say that, and I know David can identify with this, our ESL population has exploded. We are doing a tremendous amount of ESL instruction. So much so that we had to really rethink the way we did orientation, and we wanted people to feel welcome and have a warm welcome. So when the groups are that large, we're fortunate enough to have all kinds of space where we can spread out, we can work in stations. And I have all hands on deck those days, including my president, who will often be found walking the halls. He'll direct students. He loves to interact with students, especially the ESL students. He will often work at the welcome desk. So they meet everyone that day, and they get everything they need to either be a fully online student or a hybrid student if they're coming face-to-face. We set their accounts, we do all of that. They meet with an advisor. One of the biggest things we found on our campuses, and we're on 3 post-secondary campuses. 2 are Gateway, 1 is Northern Kentucky University's campus in Grant County in Williamstown. We must made the assumption that everybody must know we're doing orientation because, we're doing orientation. And we took a lot of things for granted. But now, sometimes I think we ignore our own internal stakeholders, our own partners. So we make sure that everybody knows orientation is happening from the president on down to M&O. And they will all step in gladly and work with students. And students often tell us that, I was met by somebody, he was a custodian. He got down off the ladder where he was painting and walked me over to your classroom. And that was important. We do a really great job with a nice warm handoff. We're not doing anything differently than the rest of you. We're using a lot of learning management systems. We use Google. We do a lot of things online. We are also a Blackboard institution, so my faculty are all trained in the use of Blackboard Ultra. We do a lot of things through Blackboard Collaborate and break into small groups. And instructors use what they like, but also what they find simple for the students to use. We're doing almost everything synchronously, which allows everybody to participate. We record everything we do. The online tutoring, and I heard a couple of people say this today, I have 2 folks who do that, and literally they meet the students wherever they are, if it's online, if it's face-to-face, and that has made a huge difference. We do boot camps that are embedded in almost all of our academic sessions. So at the end of a session, before we test, we have a built-in boot camp. And my faculty love that, and the students really like that as well. I use the completion coach model. I know if you all remember Lindsay, who left us, but she was the first to try that completion coach model, and that's the person in each county that students can be referred to for that little extra push. Whatever it is, it may be non-academic, but they're going to work on that and try to remediate those issues so that students can get over that last final hump, and that has been incredibly successful. In every county where I use that model, that completion coach has touched at least 70% of the successful GED students in that county. Can't say enough about my career navigators. I have a full-time and 2 part-time career navigators, and you can see yours are probably doing the same thing, but using CARES data, pulling enrollment data, always making sure that that student has a pathway plan. They keep a binder in addition to a spreadsheet, but if they're out driving in one of the 5 counties, they've got that binder they can pull out really quickly. So they're in touch with every single one of the faculty in each county and work really closely with them and meet on a pretty continual basis. We keep those career navigators extremely busy. I think we can all recognize that. The last thing I have there is a food for thought pantry, and I will tell you that this has made one of the biggest differences in retention for us. At Gateway, we were really fortunate to get a very large grant from a local foundation that allowed us to set up basically a small Kroger store on each one of our campuses. Big freezers, so it's not just dry food sitting on the shelf, it's milk, it's butter, it's cheese, it's eggs, all of those things that you often can't get from a food pantry. And originally it was just going to be for credit-bearing students. And I went to our vice president of student support, and I talked about the need, and she said, Peg, it doesn't matter if they're credit-bearing or not. Our students don't need to be hungry, and they don't need to be worrying about food insecurity. So we have a beautiful system online where students can go online. Literally, it's like ClickList. If you use ClickList, our students can do that. They can log on, they can ask for certain things. If they can't get to the campus to pick it up, it's delivered, and oftentimes it's delivered by some of my faculty. But you wouldn't believe the amount of students who say, if I didn't have groceries, if this wasn't being met, we'd be going hungry. And that's been a huge incentive for us, and one that I'm really thankful that the college lets us take advantage of. This is another building where we have services, and some of you might have heard of a group called Corporex, which is a multi-billion-dollar investment group that has their international headquarters in Kenton County. And Bill Butler, who is the head of that group, put a lot of money into something called the Life Learning Center. And it is directed by a woman who was a former House of Representative member in Kentucky. She also had a very successful career in the Kentucky State Patrol back when women weren't really moving up in management in the State Highway Patrol. They have a really incredible model for dealing with addiction and recovery, and about a month ago we were featured on the CBS Morning National News, and we are a partner here, and we're also a partner in the Kenton County Jail Detention Center, and they work together to try to work on addiction and recovery services in Northern Kentucky, and it caught national attention, and it really is a very forward-thinking, very successful program, and we're on site at both locations. So at the Life Learning Center, students have programming available to them. They have a cafeteria, they have a gym, they have computer labs. It really is an amazing facility. And it took me 3 years to finally break down the door and get in there, but I am pretty persistent, if you know me. So we were finally able to get in and to be part of that. And very often the students that we start working with at the Kenton County Detention Center end up at the Life Learning Center, where they're learning all kinds of skills in order to be successful, and we're happy to be a part of that. I can't say it enough, and I heard other people say today how great it is to be back in our jails, and that will make make or break your program. In particular, Grant County had always met their GED performance goals, and it came primarily from the jail. So we are finally back in all 3 of our jails. Again, I'll mention Kenton County because they really are looking to invest in students who want to be there. And I don't know about how it works in your jail, but you know, they are not required to go to GED class, even if they don't have their high school diploma when they're incarcerated. So my staff will work with the sergeants, and they will pull the students that really want to be there. And you know what it's like to be in a class where you have half the folks who don't want to be there and aren't invested, and it has made a big difference in terms of our instruction at the Canton County Jail. For partnerships, I worked with the folks in Workforce Solutions and some other community groups and said, where are we missing the mark? Where do we not have a partnership that we should? And where is a partnership that might have fallen by the wayside? And one of those partnerships that fell by the wayside was with the Covington Housing Authority. It's a huge organization, but never really netted much in terms of performance for my program in Kenton County. So we've reached out to them and we said, you know what, if you'll put some skin in the game, we're going to ramp up this partnership once again. And they've hired a part-time instructor who works with my folks, and that person will also do some tutoring on the side. It's a PhD candidate who is really wonderful and lives in that area and is well known by the residents in the housing authority. So that's a partnership that we've renewed. I got a call about a month ago from the Career Center director in Covington, and you know, my main learning center is only 6 blocks from that career center. But when he said to me, Peg, I have some space because Goodwill is leaving. They can't afford to rent their space anymore, and I thought I would reach out to you to see if you'd like to rent the space. And I thought about it for a couple of days, and then I thought, yeah, we won't do instruction there, but we will be there on site. There'll be a college presence there every day, just making sure that Kentucky Adult Ed is out in front, and when folks come in, we have somebody there who can talk to them and share information about it. And I know that it's not always the case at our colleges, but we have an excellent relationship with our testing center. She came back as soon as she was allowed to come back during COVID and gave us ample testing seats. She will go into my jails. It will often, and for those of you that have testing at your jails, you know that if they've been shut down for a while, it is often difficult to get that back up and running. Those computers are out of date, the programming has to be redone, and my assessment center director has spent 2 and 3 days in each county making sure that testing can happen in my jails. Natalie already mentioned the new test site that we opened at the Covington Library, and we also just opened one in our Grant County Library. And it may not sound like a lot, but the Covington students would have to drive 27 miles round trip to get to the Boone campus where testing was previously located. And for some of our folks, A, they don't have the gas or don't have a vehicle, or they don't have a vehicle that can go that far. Opening one at the Covington Library has been amazing, and it will do the same thing for Grant County, Natalie, so I'm thrilled about that. Increased emphasis on signage. I will be the first to admit that I hadn't done a great job with that. So, you know, again, you just sometimes assume that everybody knows where everything is. So we've put a tremendous emphasis on that. My college has said, you know what, it's time for us to look at our signage as well. So how can we help you with that? So we're working on some new signage. And we've also are fortunate enough that we've got folks who can do web design. So we have totally revamped the Kenton and the Boone website, and they look wonderful, and they're very user-friendly. We're getting a lot of hits on that, and we're working on the ones for Grant County. Sure I didn't tell you anything you didn't already know. Any questions? What is
So wonderful stuff. So that was great, and that's the reason why we actually had this session, and that's the reason why I pushed to keep this to be in person, to be able to get that content. And I think that was much more significant than anything that I have said or will say in the next 5 minutes before we open it up for questions. First of all, this is a tough business. This is a tough business. So let's be honest about it. This is a tough business. The population is a wonderful population, but what we're trying to encourage them to do based on the totality of the circumstance in life is difficult. It's difficult. I understand that. So I've been working in a difficult environment my entire life. When you serve in the Army, you ask people to do things that they wouldn't normally do, and you don't pay them any money until you make some rank. So I know that from personal experience. My wonderful wife and I, we both served, and we had 2 sons to serve, and they didn't make any money, so I supplemented their income. So I understand that. So this is a tough business. This is a tough business, and that's why you're subject matter experts, because we have the expertise out in the field, not in me, but in you, to be able to mitigate this process and get done what we need to get done. So it's tough. It's tough. I'll go back to the theme, continuous improvement. Yes, we do have state goals, but we have to continue to improve. As far as the metrics and the data is concerned, particularly with the state goals and then the targets. So we can do this a multitude of different ways. Let me just say this. We don't have any statisticians in this office. We never have. We never have. So some of these numbers and some of these things, to me, to the new guy, so when I asked where did this number come from, nobody could articulate it. We don't have statisticians, and it's we never have. The only technical subject matter experts that we have are the fiscal people. That's Mr. Pruitt and his people, and Mr. Tucker from an IT standpoint. But from a data standpoint, internal to this office, we don't have it, and we never have. Now, we have KY Stats for the state. They do a wonderful job, and we will use them to quantify and to come up with metrics and to figure out where we should be based on the ACS data. But we can do this thing because I recognize that this model change going from the local model to the regional model. And I recognize that CARES from a functionality standpoint is set up on the county model, which to me is ridiculous. That's just me talking. I'm not saying that the system is not a good system. I'm not saying that it's not a good data system of record. I'm saying that it does not do what we want it to do right now, the way that we're currently constructed on the regional model. Just not working. That's me. I could be wrong. So we're going to get at that one way or the other, but it won't come from this office in Frankfurt internally. It'll come from the KY Stats people, and we will get a request to them in enough time where we get the data back to give it to you in a timely manner whereby you're not guessing. But again, you can target your counties based on your macro number and do it that way. But I get the nuance of the whole thing. Trust me, I get the nuance of the whole thing. So I want to talk about that. So it's a tough business. So we don't have data people. We have very smart people, and so we've had people that have done wonderful things for this system and this program and this county and this state for many, many years. We just never had a data person. Also, from a technical standpoint, we get all of the requirements from the federal government from Octave. So, for example, this is not what John Gregory says. This is what the regulation says. This is what the federal reg says. This is what the statute says. This is what the law says. This is what the policy says. So it has nothing to do with me or anybody else personally, because I don't run this program, and neither does anybody else in Frankfurt. So we go off of the law, the statutes, and the policies. Now, the IG is internal, so I'm a policy guy. All right, so before I came to Fort Knox, I worked in Washington, D.C. on policy, on some big policy stuff. So I know policy. Policy is not law. So there's an exception to every policy, but you have to represent it and you have to present it in such a manner where it makes sense for the organization and for you. And then you can get an exception to policy. So what we have is an IG. The authority for the IG is in the office. So right now, that's me. So we write the IG so we can change it. So if it doesn't make sense, then we can change it. That's what you do with policy. If you are the authority person, then you can change it. Now, what I'm going to ask the legal team is, from a cabinet standpoint, can we establish policy in this office, or does the policy need to be up at the cabinet level? And then we'll see what they say. But a policy is not a law. So the way that I was trained in policy in Washington, D.C. was that you try to get to yes. So whatever the exception is, you try to get to yes. Not saying that you can, but your mindset and your focus should be, I'm going to try to get to yes. Now, there's certain things you just can't get yes out of, but you try to. So you don't try to go into it and say, hey, but you know, this is what the policy says, this is what the guidance says, so I'm going to say no. That's why you have an exception to policy process, and then you work through that. So that's how we're going to do that. We are in this together. So I'm an old college football player. And I understand teamwork. So I was a college football player, and I ran track in college. So I understand the team concept. I understand the team concept. My life changed significantly from playing college football, and the gentleman who turned out to be my roommates for 3 years significantly changed my life. So that's a big part of what I do, and that's a big component of who I am. So we are a team. And from a team standpoint, here in Frankfurt, we're not your adversary. We are, from a military standpoint, from an organizational structure standpoint, we are a higher level on the organizational chart, but we are in a support mode because we're not subject matter experts. Because when you're, quote unquote, in a headquarters, you're not the subject matter expert. Now, we have some subject matter experts in this office, no doubt, but comprehensively, we don't know the things that you know. Now, we don't have the experiences that you have, but we can set some conditions for you to be successful. Now, some other things that I've heard which makes me think, because I don't know this stuff and I'm trying to learn it, the instructional piece and instructional aids, and I think we took some notes as to some recommendations for some aids. So we don't know it 100% here in Frankfurt. So if we are using some instructional aids, or if we are recommending some things for the field and they may not be the best things to use, then that's okay. That's okay. Just because you tell me that I'm doing something wrong doesn't mean that you are attacking me personally. I understand that. I understand that John Christopher Gregory messes up. I don't know everything. So if you say, hey, no, time out. That's not good. I get it. I am messing up. I don't take it personally that you are attacking me personally. You're just telling me there's a better way to do it. And that's what we want to do. So if there are some things out here that we package that may not be the best, then let us know and we can make some adjustments. I have been told that some of the things and some of the people that we use, and not saying that they aren't, so please don't misquote me, are leading people in their field. And I've listened to some of them. I'm not saying that they are or they aren't, but my intent is to figure out, and if they're not, then we're going to move on to something else, and we're going to get folks that really know what they're talking about, and they can best help us do what we need to do. So those are just some things that I have captured. That was wonderful. That was wonderful. It's a lot of stuff to unpack. I know, so Heather was taking some notes, so I'm going to go through the slide deck myself and take her notes and what I have in this small brain of mine and go back and figure out how we can better support you. Now, in the interest of time, and I know there's some weather that's coming and folks got to get back up the road and down the road and east on the road and west on the road, all of that. Any questions of me about anything? If you want to ask them now, then I'll do my best to respond to you. If you want to do it in another forum, then I'll respond to you. But you can call me, you can text me, you can come by my house if you want to. Let me get. So, yeah, so as far as a timeline standpoint, we do have a timeline, and it is a tentative timeline now. So, so on or about 15 January is going to be the date that it will be released on the website, and more to follow with an application due date, and this is tentative, so this is general knowledge for, you know, folks here as well as, you know, folks that want to try to be a part of the process somewhere around the latter part of March, I believe, if my memory serves me correctly. So that's the tentative timeline. We are working on a landing page on the website now where we will post all things concerning the upcoming process. I will say something else about that in general terms. So there is the eligibility criteria, which people took me to task, probably rightly so, but when I hopped on, and I guess I was told my tone, and this was not the Army, and you know, my tone was really rough, and this, that, and the other thing. But that was intentional because in 2018 there were some challenges that we had, of which the federal government came in and did a report, of which there were 7 findings, and that was number 1, the eligibility criteria. This is what I'll say about that. All right, we set the bar as far as that in this office, and this is for everybody in Kentucky, in the whole world, and this is being recorded, I think, from an eligibility criteria standpoint. That's set within this office. There is no intent to eliminate anyone from competing. Now, going forward and competing, that's a separate process. That's a separate process. Now, what I have found out is that it's difficult, and I didn't know this, it's difficult for new people to come into the adult ed space because of the eligibility criteria, because you need data. Not saying that you have to be a sub-grantee now, but you had to have already done this to have data to be eligible. So it's not real easy for new folks to come in off the street and say, hey, look, I want to do this. So that's that. It will be an open competition, but you know, just like I said, it's hard for new folks to come into the game. Those are just the facts. Those are just the facts. Okay.
Part of that is our fiscal aid, causing us heartache, budget revisions. And the other part is Terry has no control over this. And I've talked to him about it several times.
Okay.
The budget is a mess.
So, all right. So let me try to unpeel this onion here. So what I heard you say was that the budget process is based on a county model, but the contracts are with the local providers, which is 27. So the contracts whereby the funds flow through are going out to the 27 of you, but the budget is county. Okay. Now, so let me say this, that just hearing the question doesn't make sense to me. I know budget stuff. I'm not a budget person, but I've dealt with a whole lot of budgets, and I've dealt with contracts, and I got a wife at home who is a contract subject matter expert from so what she did as far as the Army, so I get it. And I'm going to have to get back with Mr. Pruitt, but if this is an internal kind of process, internal meaning the office, then I have to figure that out. If it's a requirement from the state or from the cabinet, then we'll have to investigate that. I don't know that. At the state level. So, yeah, because I know that the state has countless different contracts, and I know they don't disperse they can't do it that way. They just can't do it that way. That's some fiscal management that I'm not familiar with. All right, so can we get that? Because that doesn't make sense to me, because if the performance standards and the requirements are based on the regional model, and then the funding streams, if you will, going through the local county model, consistent with the CARES functionality, which again is a challenge for me. Not that I'm right. So please don't go back and tell people that I'm bad-mouthing CARES. I'm not. CARES is a database just like any other database in the world. It's no more special or no less than any other database that exists. You can build a database to do what you want it to do. So that's what that is. But we're going to look into that. I was not aware of that. Thank you, sir. I'm going to say no. Okay. Is okay. Um, that makes sense to me. Now, I'm not the decision maker. I would like to think that, I would like to think that the secretary will take my recommendation. But I'm not the decision maker, but that makes sense. That makes sense to me. KY for Kentucky. All right. Let me. Oh, so KY. All right. All right. So the office thing was born out of the naming convention of the office here in the cabinet, but that makes sense. KYAE. Got it. All right. Got it. Okay. Yes, ma'am. Hey, trust me. Yeah, I'm in a bunch of conversations, and I'll tell you the way that I'm trying to approach this. So, I'm trying to give the career centers or the KWIB, and I've been talking with the new executive director of the KWIB extensively. I'm trying to give them an opportunity to tell me where they think, and I'll say me, not you, where they think I am falling short as far as the partnership standpoint. And I will let them take their shots, and that's fine. And then I'll say, all right, fine, got it. I mean, this is where I'm messing up. This is where I'm falling short. I will take my medicine, and then I will pull out my list. So, okay. Now, you told me what you thought of me, and that's fine. And I'm going to tell you what I think of you. And if... Yeah, so if you told me what you thought of me and I tell you what I think of you, then somewhere we're going to have to come to an agreement that this is beneficial to both of us. And I had a chance to meet with Secretary Link as well as Secretary Regan Monday, maybe, and I think I have another meeting on Monday. And that's my plan, to say, hey, you can tell me where I'm messing up. I got it, but I'm not the only one that's probably not playing well in the sandbox. So, need somebody to be the referee to help Kentucky, not to just help me and not to just to help them, but to help Kentucky. That's a point very well taken. Yeah, that's a very good point, that they're not coming back to you, because that's a component of what we do. So this is, they're not being, so this is what I'm going to ask, and this probably already exists, because this has been should I say this? My experience prior to coming here at a place whereby the population that we serve were wonderful kids, but some were not quite prepared for the experience, but there was not a plan to get them prepared for the experience. And when they walked out of the door, they were not prepared to be competitive with their peers because there was not a plan in place to get them to a level. So if we get the students to come back through this partnership, then I know that everybody's going to be prepared to give them what they need. But that's an excellent point. That's an excellent point. That's an excellent point. Yes, ma'am. Yep.
Because the referrals are coming, they are leaving, they are great, I love it. But the thing about it is that also giving them the message on their way to my center, you don't really have to do that.
Great. Yeah. I would definitely do that. I didn't really realize that. I mean, so I can conceptualize it in my mind now that it's been brought up. But so I get that. So that will be done. So I will say this because it was mentioned about the turnover as far as people in the jails. Let's be sure that we're looking at the data and scrutinizing the data, because the majority of Kentuckians doing state time are not doing it in the prisons. They're doing it in the jails. So they're not going anywhere, because it costs about $31 a day for DOC to house a resident in a jail, vice to $200 a day to house them in the prisons. So they're not going anywhere. Okay. 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 So, but, so let me get with some folks to kind of scrutinize this data to see what type of population we're actually dealing with, and see where the turnover is. And then, so once we get some numbers, and so once we put some metrics behind it, then I can ask an intelligent question and say, hey, look, this is what I see as transpiring. I need your help in this, because we start a process with a student and then they get transferred not to get into their business, but to get into Kentucky business, and say, hey, look, if we keep pushing this second chance re-entry, you're cutting off the person's nose to spite their face, because we're moving them. And when you keep telling me about this second chance, and you call me on the carpet about the second chance, which you should, but I got it. And so this is what I would need. So I'm not up here tap dancing when you are looking at these numbers and you're asking me to explain them. Yes, ma'am. That, yeah, so that sounds like an internal process. And as long as I'm sitting in the seat, as long as the Lord says, hey, look, this is where you need to be, then that's something that I can probably change. But if they tell me, hey, don't come back on Monday, then obviously it's going to be somebody else. But but that sounds like so let me kind of figure out what I need to do. Let me try to think through it. I'll reach back out to you as a SMEs and say, hey, look, so tell me how this should look. And this doesn't need to be something formal. I may just call you on the phone and say, okay, explain it to me again. And then I'll try to figure it out, and then we'll. All right. Ma'am? So. Yeah, yeah. So I had that conversation with DOC because the way that it's on the cabinet website, I think it's the Justice Cabinet, one could infer that the prisons and the jails fall up under DOC. They don't. And they don't anywhere else in the country, but you can read that and infer that. That's not the case. There are 76 independent jails, and a jailer or a sheriff, kind of likewise, they are elected. So there you go. So they can govern themselves accordingly. Not saying that they won't do things in partnership with us, but there's no stick, if you will, from the state standpoint, because it's not recognized under the state as far as DOC is concerned. Because I went to the state about a program that I've been working with Greg on, that's a jail, and I said, hey, look, this is a wonderful program, but you know what's going on, and I'm wondering why you guys are not giving this any visibility. And they said, because it's not a state program. Okay, got it. Not a state program, it's a jail. You think it's wonderful, but it's not a state program. So they shut me up really quick because I thought I had some ammunition and I got shot down real fast. So that's how they work. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, so we can take a look at that. On your first point, I think there's a way to make this better. So recognizing, and I have some knowledge in this area because of some of the things that I teach. From a security standpoint, then that's going to trump everything as far as a facility is concerned. However, if we can work out some type of process whereby people who are actively engaged in the GED process, and we say, hey, look, whenever your movement process comes up, these are the individuals in this facility that are currently engaged in a GED process, and if at all possible, this is what we project, that if they continue on their current course, that they will complete the process. So, you know, please take this into consideration if you're trying to, you know, move people, and if they don't absolutely have to be on your movement order to from this county to this county, then this is a person that can benefit. Now, this should have some teeth, and I said should because a lot of people are talking about second chance and reentry. So either we're really going to be about second chance and reentry, and this is a component of it, or we're not. So that's, I think, a way that we can bring this together in a couple of different ways. But that's a very good point. So, yeah, now, that's a very good point. If there's a hard testing date already, then we can say, hey, look, this is something that you definitely want to strongly consider, because this is something that's scheduled, this is a hard date, and they can complete this milestone, and then if you want to move them and put them on the movement order for your purposes, then you can. But let's work through that. Let's work through, man, my list is getting pretty long. All right, that's all right. Okay. All right. So, good. All right. So what else we got? Sure. No. The genesis of the email came from KCTCS. The origin that generated the email came from me, because I figured out that GED Plus was not affected. So I made a recommendation to the secretary to say, hey, look, but can I kill this program? Because it's not working. And from what I can see, and nobody can articulate and express to me and show me that it is working and prove to me that it is working, because the way that it was constructed, there was no incentive for folks to continue down the GED path, and they just did this short-term certificate and knocked that out, which served KCTCS well. And that's wonderful. That's fine. But it didn't do anything as far as the student as it related to reaching that GED milestone. So that was just a program that wasn't working. I didn't think that it was working, so we decided on that, and there has nothing, now, hold up, so let me back up. I was in a meeting where some things were mentioned, and I need to go back through my notes to look at the program, and it's not an exclusive program, and it's not the only one, but I can't think off the top of my head exactly what it is, but it's not going to be something singular. It's going to be something that is going to have the opportunity for some scalability to grow, because we have to be in that space. So whether it's a combination of the adult basic instruction and skills and then going on to the post-secondary, the college environment, or whether it's a combination of those basic skills and going on to a job or going on to a career or a vocation or a certificate or something, we have to be in that space. We have to be in that space. Now, people are going to still, you know, ask for the GEDs, but the comeback will be is that, all right, got it, and we're still working that, because the question has been, what are you guys doing? And somebody mentioned the cost per GED, ma'am. So one of the first things that I was approached with, so when I got here was, but you know it's $8,000 per GED? Yeah. So I was like, no, I didn't know that, but I appreciate you. And it was kind of like, so what are you guys doing? So what are you doing with the state's money? And we can say, all right, I recognize that there's some growth as far as the GED, but these other things that we have to do, this is what we're doing. Now, people mention the navigators. So I'll be honest. So I struggle not with the concept of the navigators, but with how the duties and responsibilities are being executed. So I saw two different documents. So I saw one document with the duties and responsibilities, and then I saw another one that looked like it was about 6 pages long. That's way too long. Any type of job description that exceeds like a page and a half, that's too much. That's too much. So the hours requirement, All right, so we can approach this from several ways, because this has been my challenge with the navigators, because it sounds wonderful. So when I go out and talk to people and tell them that we have approximately 70 college and career navigators, all that sounds beautiful. But I got the question, okay, so what does that look like? If a student wants to do A, B, C, D, and E, how does that happen? And I'm pretty adept on my feet, and this was in a live session, and I have no idea. One, because I know, because I have observed in some places, they're not doing that. We're just going to keep this real. We're going to be honest. They're not doing it. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. They're not doing it. So for me to go out here and express to people, this is what we have, and these are the capabilities, and this is how we're helping people in Kentucky, and then I get people telling me in my face, no, they're not doing that, and I have observed it. So that's a challenge. The hours piece, now we do have a problem as far as uniformity from a service component, because the contracts are for 12 months. So let's just talk big picture, macro. The contracts are for 12 months. So if we look at the data across the quarters, the data tells the story. And it doesn't appear, so I choose my words advisedly, it doesn't appear that throughout all of the quarters, particularly the first quarter, which is the summer months, not a whole lot of activity. That's just what the data, that's not me saying it, that's what the data is telling me. But the contract is for 12 months. Now, as far as a set hour from a quantity standpoint for the navigators, we will take a look at that, but one course of action could be, and I'm kind of spitballing here, so I might be speaking out of school without sitting down with the subject matter experts. I know from a post-secondary, from a faculty standpoint. So when I was at Kentucky State, I was a faculty member in the School of Public Administration and the Master's of Public Administration program. So from an accreditation standpoint, Kentucky State being a small school, we were required to have 5 full-time faculty members. Problem was we had a chair, we had a program person who was running the program, and then we had me, who was also an administrator at Kentucky State. So I could not be counted as a full 1.0 faculty member. But they came up with, but you know, not 5 full-time people, but it had to add up to 5 full-time people, which was me at 0.5 as far as a faculty member, and 0.5 an administrator, and then the chairman is 0.25 as a faculty member, a person that's teaching, and 0.75 as the chair. So maybe we can look at in totality what full-time looks like for on the regional model, what full-time looks like from an hour standpoint, from a macro standpoint, and then maybe we can work in some flexibility. Now, some things, so I will tell you, I may not be willing to be flexible on. One is instructors, because I'm going to tell you what, we spend a lot of money and time on PL. And I'll be honest with you, some of the questions that I'm getting is, you spending all this time and money on PL, but show me the success on the back end. And I'm stuck. That's just honest. They got me. I can't articulate it. So it's not translating. Not saying that the PL is not good, not saying that the folks that do it here, I think they're doing a wonderful job. There's a disconnect somewhere, and the disconnect might be me. So I need to figure that out. But maybe we can look at it from a macro level, from what it takes from an hour standpoint to run a full-time program on the regional level. And then perhaps, now I'm choosing my words advisedly, because I'm not the subject matter expert in all of these areas, to go back and really kind of see what this looks like. There may be an opportunity to build some flexibility into that, and potentially maybe the navigators may be one of them. That may be one of them. Let me go here first, and then I'll come back to you. You just- Yeah, that's not gonna happen. Yeah, yeah, that's, yes, yes. So maybe in a non-competition year, because we are looking at a cycle as far as the cabinet is concerned, that we have to submit the contracts to the cabinet in February. So maybe in a year as far as the competition, that may be possible. In this year, in real time, it's not going to happen. But I get the point. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I know the contract business very well because the federal government, but DOD is full of contractors, so you can't do anything in the military without contractors. And it's tough to see people waiting on contracts, but to be let and just coming to work knowing that the contract is going through, but they're not being paid. That's tough. So I've seen that. I get that. The intent is to not to let that happen this year. Yeah, certainly. I think that is a factor. I don't think it's all of the factors associated why the performance is low during the summer. I think that contributes for sure, but that's not the only factor. Yes, ma'am. Oh, sorry, ma'am. I'm sorry. Start the year with an approved budget. So, so this current, yeah, yeah. So never. All right. Okay. So, all right, that makes sense. We offer. Yes, so the normal process, to my understanding and my conversations with the cabinet, and so they have told me this in certain terms as well. And so mind you, there's been a migration from CPE and doing things, because I really didn't realize this, but CPE is not an official government agency. They do wonderful things, but it's a quasi-governmental. Yeah, so the cabinet standard is we need to provide them the contracts no later than February to get the process going, so we can get this through all of the hurdles in time so folks are funded. So that's the standard. And that's what they have told me on more than one occasion. This current year, so we also had some other challenges with the language of the contract based on the monitoring report from USDOE. That we had to kind of get some things done, and the totality of the circumstance of the pandemic being new as far as the cabinet, et cetera, et cetera. So we had some language problems, and we had some things that we should have allowed you to bill for that we told you that you couldn't. And the federal government came back and said, no, that's wrong. So we had to change some things. We had to change some of the content. We had to go back and make some modifications. And then prior to, we had to submit it to the federal government for them to say, okay, this is right, this is fixed. So that kind of caused us some time. That's not an excuse. So that's my fault. Gotcha. Gotcha. And that makes sense. That makes sense. That makes sense. All right. Yes, ma'am. Hey, I didn't say that it was a good time. So, I, uh, so I have a lot of experience in contracts, and I'm going to tell you that's the nature of the business of contract work. Now, that's just it. So there's no way of getting around that. And it's not just in Kentucky, it's not just in the states, it's the federal government, it's globally. That's just how the contract process works. Sometimes it's an ugly process. Now, the dates that we have are no later than dates, and we will move through the process as quickly as possible. But yeah, that's a component that probably really can be mitigated. I understand it. I've seen it. But that's why they call it a competitive process, because Senate Bill 1 says that the process in the state of Kentucky will be done through a local provider network, but they don't say who the local providers are. It's just a local provider network. And that's why they have a competitive process. You go through the process. And I know you certainly don't want to lose folks that are really good and that are experienced and that have just levels of knowledge that probably can't be replaced. And neither would I. But, you know, some of this is the process that takes place every 3 years, 3 to 4 years. And that's tough. So I realize that. But we're going to work through the process as quickly as we can. But like I said, it's a competitive process based on the mandates from the federal government and Kentucky state law. But again, now I know there is some nuance as far as, I guess, writing for particular geographical areas and counties, let's just say internally. So I get that. But again, you know, as far as, you know, new folks just kind of coming into the space, from what I have learned, it's difficult for people to come in off the street. Now, what the final kind of footprint is going to look like from a geographical standpoint, that's what the competition is for. But that's a point well taken. Maybe we'll go back and look at the timeline between when the application is released and when the applicants are required to submit the applications, and try to find a happy medium between giving people enough time to really go through a thorough process and then maybe truncating that time on the back so we can let folks know a little bit earlier that, hey, look, you know, this is your process. So that's a good question. So there may be some flexibility there. There may be some flexibility there. So we good? Like I said, I will do my best to answer the question. Let me just reiterate this. I'm going to take a look at those notes and go through. I'm going to get back with the functional area experts in the office. So if it's a budget thing, then I'll be talking with Mr. Pruitt. If it's a navigator thing, then I'll be talking with Ms. Hopkins. If it's a PL thing, then I'll be talking with Ms. Looney, et cetera, et cetera. I don't want to speak out of school just up here, just going off the top of my dome, being like 7 months in. So I'm going to go back and get with them and see what right looks like. But if you've captured that long list, and if you want to follow up with me on your specific question, send me an email, call me. I am not a person that talks on the phone that much, so anytime my phone rings, I pick it up, so I don't even see who's calling. I just pick it up because I'm not a person that talks on the phone. So if you call me, then I'll pick up. So That's just how I do business, unless it's my kids that are begging for money, but then I might not pick up. But outside of that, we're good. Oh, cool, great. Oh, great. All right, so if that's it for me, if all hearts and minds are clear, this doesn't end this session. This just ends this second quarter meeting formally. But like I said, just reach out to me. And again, so let me get with the people that know, and so let me get back to you, and I will respond. I'll start this weekend as soon as I get through the task that my wife has for me to do. Cool? So we're good. Be safe and God bless.